Welcome to this episode of the TelePT Connections podcast. I'm Daniel Seidler.
I'm Adrian Miranda.
And our special guests today are Stephanie Wakeman, a physical therapist, and Megan Doyle, an occupational therapist, who are with Navigate Your Pain. They can tell us all about it. Welcome, ladies.
Hello, Dan. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Hey, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you, Megan. And Stephanie and I, we've spoken many times before. Mostly about telehealth PT, and I'm sure we'll get into that today. And I want to hear all about what you guys are working on. So let's kick it off. What tell us a little bit about Navigate Your Pain.
I guess I'll start this one off, Megan, and you can finish it for me. Navigate Pain was born out of an idea from a few of us in a let's just call it a think tank of the APHPT, the Academy of Health Promotion and Prevention Therapies, that was started by Mike Eisenhart and Proactivity. And because we are in a space where we believe in physical therapists and rehabilitation specialists and occupational therapists being in the space of population health, health prevention, and working in an upstream environment, we really support one another with these little incubator ideas, and that's where Navigate Pain was born. And so the idea was to create a website, a space where people can access a website fairly easily and contact a PT or an OT with help about their pain, whether it be acute pain or chronic pain, and get a consult for 15 minutes and follow up self-management ideas, whether they be exercise or education or a combination of the both, with a follow-up visit there afterwards, just to help people stay out of the medicalization and to address issues as soon as they pop up, and not 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, several months later when things start to snowball and become worse and expensive. Is that right, Megan?
Yes, that's it in a nutshell. And I just wanted to add, I came on, I have additional training and a background as an occupational therapist, but also as a fellow of pain science. So I've really gone into a lot of the additional training, and the rest of the group approached me. This is something I'm very passionate about as well, upstream thinking when it comes to, in particular, pain care and health and wellness. I'm the one right now that's really trying to work, as well as with Stephanie, creating a lot of our content. So we also offer a lot of blog posts, a lot of information. I think we're going to strive for more and more. So that way, anybody that is part of our website, they're getting additional information. We're also trying to work with, right now, smaller employers and be the go-to for their employees for that information, really, again, being more of that upstream effort. So we're trying to put out a lot of content that we think will help people as well.
That's excellent. Before we go any further, what's the website? And we'll repeat it later on, but let's get it out there right away.
NavigateYourPain.com.
Perfect. NavigateYourPain.com. Cool.
All one word.
All one word. Are there, besides physical therapy, occupational therapy, are there other practitioners or other representatives in the group?
We're all PTs and OTs. Megan is our one OT and fellow of pain science, and we are also certified in population health promotion and prevention through the Academy at APHPT. So we've all gone through pretty extensive training, really, on what population health is, health prevention, awareness.
Sure. So what is the strategy, or what is the plan for someone? How do patients get to you? Is it typically direct from your website, or is it always from an employer or through an insurance company?
Right now, it's both D2C, direct to consumer, and we do have one employer that has contracted with us for services, and possibly another one in the pipeline. So the website is primarily D2C. You don't need to download an app. You just need to know that we exist.
Yep.
and log on and read the content and make an appointment right online.
So what would be
I have a question. How do people find out you exist? What are your current ways to get the attention or to put yourselves out there?
Yeah, that's been a learning curve, figuring all of that out, learning about SEO, search engine optimization, and social media marketing and inbound marketing. So we're kind of building that plane as we're flying it. And hopefully we can become a little bit more savvy in our marketing and get ourselves out there a little bit more. Do you have anything to add to that, Megan?
I do. Actually, the other aspect is the Navigate Your Pain website also really functions as a triage model. So the goal would really be that if we can really hone somebody in that shorter telehealth appointment, that's great. Obviously, we know that there are folks that would really benefit from working with a physical therapist or another provider in the community. So something else through the APHPT we've started to garner is trying to have a proven provider or preferred provider network. So we are trying to create a network where we know that there are basically clinicians out there that we feel really comfortable and confident referring folks to. We're trying to create that. That's going to generate some word of mouth on top of referrals for us, kind of travel people back to us. Maybe they don't think it's somebody that really needs to go the traditional route of going into the clinic. Maybe they would benefit from just speaking to us more from that telehealth model. And then, of course, the third part of that triage, we know there really are those times that somebody actually needs to go see more of a medical provider if there's some red flags. So we're really trying to be that first stop that way too. But I think that preferred provider network is another way that we're going to be able to funnel it both ways. People that do benefit or would benefit from being in a more traditional clinic setting, but also folks that clinician recognizes, hey, they probably really don't need to come see me in the clinic. Maybe they would be better served contacting the folks with Navigate Your Pain and doing more of a telehealth visit that way.
Yeah. Is that network, are you looking to make it nationwide, or are you focusing on a specific geographic region right now?
Right now, with the waivers in place and with how we're operating it, we're hoping we are nationwide. We hope to reach everybody from East to West Coast and everywhere in between. And, we will change as directed by all of the regulations, depending on what happens.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's that. And I think, hopefully with in time, waivers won't be necessary. Most states will have some sort of telehealth regulations that allow practitioners to, licensed practitioners in that state to treat. Payers will pay, things like that. It's definitely a pretty gray area right now, and a few states already are rolling back some of their waivers. And how about growing your network, your brick and mortar network?
There is no, Navigate Your Pain is not a brick and mortar network. It is strictly a telehealth network. And as Megan so eloquently just described, we hope to establish that referral network. Gotcha. Yep. So we will refer to people who do have a brick and mortar network when we feel it warranted through, after a triage assessment that this individual may need further care other than some self-management strategies. And we would sort of vet some providers who would sort of fit our model of more of an upstream,
sure.
Whole body evidence-based practice of care.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say that this is planned and we put this together, but it wasn't. It's kind of coincidence. But our last two guests, 2 weeks ago, we spoke with Emil Berengut, who manages the physical therapy department for student health at NYU. Very, very focused on population health and going upstream and preventing injuries and doing all kinds of programs with students and faculty at NYU. And last week, our guest was Lydia Zeller from KIO, KIIO, and her company is kind of an automated health musculoskeletal management company, software company that automates care. Same premise, but definitely different strategy or application than what you guys are doing. Do you see advantages or disadvantages to that, or to what you're doing versus more of an automated software program?
I was going to say, I'll
go ahead, Megan.
On that. I think one of the things that the research really, really tells us, and I would imagine, more and more research is coming out. Why is it that certain patients, clients prefer telehealth versus in person?
Sure.
You can't replace that in-person aspect. I think there's a lot to be said for the ability, even in a shorter telehealth visit, to have more of that customization. It's still a warm body sitting in front of you that's actually empathetic and interacting with you. I could see the automated model being of benefit, certainly need to scale, but there's got to be something to be said. And the research again tells us, especially when it comes to pain, that therapeutic alliance that can be developed very, very quickly is an intervention in and of itself. I may be a little bit biased. I would never want to not leave that, but that's my 2 cents.
And as we all know, to treating really any condition, but especially pain, you need to develop trust. And I think it would be really difficult to develop that trust and to have that candor if you didn't have a live person interacting with you who can really understand your issues and be able to dig a little bit deeper into what the seed of the problem is.
Yeah. My take, and I think Adrienne agrees with me on this, we've discussed it a few times, is that there's definitely a place for both. That automated model obviously can scale, and there are a lot of people who will benefit from it because they weren't going to exercise otherwise, and if their employer is sort of pushing this program to them, that's really easy for them to do every morning or every evening. They might just do it, and they're showing good outcomes. So, on the other hand, I fully agree with the therapeutic alliance, and I think that that's really, that's as a PT, of course, that's more of my bent on this. Do you look at it as like a model that you would like to scale, that you'd like to be able to? I mean, sorry, I'll kind of reel in my question. Stephanie and I have talked about this a little bit. She was with a large telehealth company, and one of the premises was really managing a case, right? And fewer interactions, but a lot more focus on getting that outcome and saving costs. Are you looking at it sort of the same way in how you manage patients in your system, your program?
Well, the way we're managing the patients right now within the system is it really is sort of a one touch, if you will, base in terms of face-to-face interaction with a follow-up via email. So one synchronous and one asynchronous touch base with the client.
Yep.
And so, that is something that certainly is scalable, because it's not meant to be a full treatment plan. It's meant to be an education and an awareness and possibly a referral if needed.
Sure.
So the whole premise is to kind of keep the individual out of needing or away from needing a system where they're having constant automated reminders and to help them self-manage that problem individually or independently, I should say.
Gotcha. So more of you said it a couple of times, it went over my head, I think, but more of a triage model.
It's more of a triage. It's not treatment. It's not a replacement for a plan of care for any rehab.
Sure.
It's just a triage. So we're hoping to really, as Megan indicated earlier, we want to have a group of providers and sort of a preferred provider network where we can gather individuals that, hold themselves to high standards and be able to refer people to them. If we see that indeed there is a need for further care. But, the goal is to reach the individual within 24 hours of injury.
Sure.
If it's an acute injury, or to reach that individual as soon as their chronic pain pattern exacerbates. And instead of having them run to the urgent care center or run to their private doctor and have that copay or, have that cost, that higher cost, which may possibly incur imaging and medication, to try to get in there before individual runs to those places and see if we can help them manage their condition and prevent further medicalization down the line.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through like the experience? So if I found you, you did great SEO, I found you, I got to your website. Can you give me a little like rundown of what the experience would be like? What happens next?
So I'll take you through that because I've done it. I've been doing this a little bit. So if you were to go to navigateyourpain.com and decide that this is something you want to try, you would see on the website where you can click on a button to schedule an appointment. And we try to make those appointments within a very, quick time frame. You will receive an invitation in the email that of your therapy time and who it's going to be with, hopefully that same day. And you'll be able to have a 15-minute consultation with a therapist about your problem, via Zoom. And the therapist would then be able to prescribe some individualized self-management plan of care for you. You will take that advice and those exercises or those behavior changes, whatever was recommended, and try them out for a few days. And then you would get a follow-up email to see how things are going and help help answer any more questions or concerns you may have. Or if at that point it's not any better at all, talk about what the other options are. And that's the end.
Sure. Megan, can you tell us a little bit about how your population health background contributed to the development of this model?
Yeah, absolutely. So it definitely goes back to the APHPT. All of us have gone through the CERT course and we all met in that group. I love talking about being the renegade first OT that broke into that group, and that's been an enjoyable experience. Part of the great thing with APHPT is we know that we want to break out of silos. That's been a huge issue. We all want the same things, if we're really being honest. We all want to have a fundamentally different way to care. That's the really big tagline of APHPT. And so breaking out of silos, recognizing that we are conservative care providers that want to come together. And so for me personally, I've always worked in more of the traditional rehab space, but as I got more invested in learning about pain science, recognizing that's easily the biggest barrier people have to their overall wellness, or it's just it's more that initial warning sign. Most of the time, if you have that initial acute pain onset, if it's not an injury accident where it's very obvious from that perspective, right? But that insidious onset of back pain, that's probably lower in that chain, and things were happening along that path in order to give us that warning sign. So the population health part comes where we're all thinking we need to move this upstream. It would be really great to give people that advice, that self-management, really give the power back to them, like Stephanie was saying, to hopefully reduce the risk of further medicalization and demedicalize. The APHPT, we're all about just general health, wellness, health promotion behaviors. This is regardless of pain or with pain. Just so happens that we know as providers, what's the number one reason? I know, especially in the physical therapy space, if somebody's coming to you in the clinic, they're most likely coming to you because they have pain and they have a pain condition that's impacting their quality of life. And lo and behold, like I was saying, there were many stepping stones along the way that maybe led to that point, or certainly we know that persistent pain state that didn't just happen. There were other things that were occurring. So I think from that bigger, broader population health, it was super exciting when the rest of the group came to me. They know how passionate I am about pain and pain science and helping people understand. Just makes sense for us as a group. We want that fundamentally different way to care, and we just want to move as upstream and bigger, broader, scalable as possible. So we're starting where we are, but I think we all share the same dream of making something like this really readily scalable to make a difference on that population health level.
Right. And you say scalable. Now, and we've each said that word a couple of times.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Where are you going to scale it? Like, where do you see this going?
Yeah, well, I'll throw it back to Stephanie and I'll add on if there's anything else.
So with regards to, let's break this down into two different parts. So where do we, in terms of scale, where do we see it going in terms of a therapist, a rehabilitation specialist, taking, scaling health promotion on the level of therapy. I think, let's break it down in between that question and then maybe scaling in terms of navigate pain. But I think they're both connected, because I think one breakthrough that we need, that, both professions really need to do is to educate the public as to what we can offer in terms of treatment for pain, treatment to address any lifestyle behaviors, treatment to improve quality of life, treatment to decrease non-communicable diseases. So how do we scale that? I think that's the broader question to ask. And once we can be successful in scaling that idea and then scaling that vision into society, then we can really see, these incubator ideas like navigate your pain, really take off.
Yep.
And so, yeah, how are we going to scale that? I think that's a question for all of us.
Well, what I am envisioning, and I think you alluded to it a little bit, is working with employers. You work with employers who are looking to reduce their healthcare costs, and as opposed to an employee, whether it be a work injury or something that happens over the weekend, not at work, an employee gets injured and they're likely to go to their doc or the ER or urgent care. But if they are expected to use navigate pain, then I think you have very viable solutions that can save them a lot of money and probably put them on the right track a lot faster than they would be otherwise, right? I mean, we've all experienced it as PTs, where you get a patient 3 months after they sprain their ankle, and now they have a chronically sprained ankle that swells every day, and it's stiff and contracted and weak. And if you speak to that person the day it happens, you at least, whether you can help them with direct care or not, you can at least triage them and tell them where to go and help them get there.
No.
Am I making this up, or is that what you guys are thinking of doing?
No, that's perfect. That was absolutely perfect. And I think it is, you're talking about that. And you even set the timeline, 3 months, that's when chronic pain happens, right?
Sure.
So yeah, day one, or again, use the example of the ankle sprain. But again, as I mentioned too, we know, perfect example I keep bringing up, in non-specific low back pain, right? But there's lifestyle factors contributing to that. So catching somebody early. So the other thing I will say with that population health aspect is the workforce in general. Thinking about, okay, there's these different stages in life, that workforce population, that's the key target market in that adult market. And
Sure.
To try to cast the widest net possible, that employer-employee space is huge and massive for that exact reason. So thank you for bringing up that example, because I think that really nails that big vision right now. That's a big wide net, and that's another aspect to the scalability too.
Yeah, and some of the people we've spoken with are offering similar solutions with software or automated solutions like that. It's I don't know what the best solution is. I don't know who's going to win out, or if there's going to be space for both. But I think that this is, once you build it out and you really have established it, I think it's a great solution for employers and probably just payers across the board.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you have a preference as to who you want to work with? I mean, I know it's like you just want to help as many people as possible, but do you have any thoughts on would you prefer, if you got like an investment of $100 million from somebody, would you go direct to consumer, or would you go after all the employers? Like, is there one that you prefer?
We would probably go after the employers, because it would just be, you have one target and many potential clients, as opposed to going to direct to consumer. Sure. You work a lot harder to get each individual client. So you definitely have a greater opportunity to make more of an impact if you go into the employer space. So that would definitely be our preference, is to go that route.
Yeah, the other aspect I want to just add to that too, Stephanie shared the model and the fact that that one individual that has a consultation with us, that telehealth visit, they get the follow-up information. When we're working with employers, we're also just sending them information on a weekly basis too. So our content that we're creating through the website, blog post information, that's just going to be going to employees regardless. So the ideal would be that employee never actually has that onset event, in due part because they're hopefully getting really quality content from us, that hopefully they're motivated enough or a self-starter that they're able to just take it and run with it themselves. So I think that's the other undersold aspect of that employer space, where employees are also going to be getting content from us as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Megan. It's a great it's a great field to disseminate the information of health prevention, and with somewhat of a captive audience. And we can really demonstrate the value of the value of therapy, the value of lifestyle change, and how that can impact not only their work life but their professional life, and then see a positive change in both aspects.
Sure. So that brings us to the question of, how do you initially engage or interest people in this information? Always a challenge, right? And then how do you keep them engaged? And what strategies are you taking to do each of those things?
I think that's where we're definitely tinkering, if we're totally honest.
Yeah.
Creating the initial blog post content. So far, the one employer that we do have a contract with has given us really positive feedback about the information we provided. I think I see us expanding beyond just certainly written materials. We've talked a lot about using our social media, as well as maybe creating just really short snippets of videos that are really interactive, but are giving people really actionable ideas or really quality information in a short span. So we understand that attention spans are short, and that's just the best way to convey that information. Not to mention, it's a lot easier for those touch points, in the sense of, if you're distributing multiple shorter videos, people are just getting more access to those too. So I think there's just tons of room to grow. It could turn itself into more scheduled deployment of information that has multimedia, visual. I think we just have nothing but room to grow and be creative in front of us that way.
Adrian is a storyteller, a video producer, an educator, and you can check out his series. He does all kinds of education on physical therapy, anatomy. What works from your experience, Adrian? What works and what doesn't work in this space?
Sorry, I'm laughing because as soon as I unmuted myself, a car honked their horn for like the whole time. I'm not sure if you heard that.
Perfect timing.
And of course, it's raining now, right? Is that why you turned on the lights? Yeah. So it just got really dark
here.
So that's why my
wife just ran outside to bring some of the plants in. It's storming here in New York.
Yeah. But honestly, I've been trying to figure this out for 10 years, about a decade, is how do you connect our education, right? Pain science in this aspect into something that's engaging, quick, and gets to the point. So that's kind of, if you see myself on LinkedIn, that's pretty much the premise. We don't know because no one's really done it. There are some case examples of, if you watch a documentary on Netflix, some work, some don't. The biggest one I call is Marie Kondo, tidying up, the Queen's Gambit, the chess sets being sold. So I think it's really challenging. Even when I talk to even producers who do healthcare content, somebody, Ari Mostov, that's what she does. She consults with like health content, Discovery Channel, big networks, and it's really kind of creating a narrative that's relatable. But that recipe is elusive. Like, we really don't know. I'm not sure if you have data already with what content that you have out there on Navigate Your Pain that people watch all the way through nonstop, or what content really resonates with people that they want more of, or they request it, or they laugh, cry, or yell. Those are pretty much the three aspects. And I'm sure you're probably trying to understand that even within your SEO and your social media marketing, what catches people's attention about pain, and I think that's really the hard part, is that we've been so clinical, like very, very clinical. We can sit in front of a patient, but to create a massive sort of storytelling narrative it's hard. I mean, it's something I'm still working on, after almost a decade of trying to figure it out. But what's resonated so far, I really don't know. Like, I use big examples. Bill Nye the Science Guy is someone who I really greatly emulate. He was the most successful, not just with kids, but with adults. People don't realize he won an Emmy for adult primetime or daytime primetime television, not just for children. And that's kind of, for me, like the goal, like the holy grail is like, how do you do that? And with us adults, we get a lot going on to get our attention. It's like the
And
silly
we're
viral,
inundated with information.
unless it's really, really silly on TikTok. My sister is 45 and she sends me TikToks all the time about like the silliest things. I'm like, why are you on this thing? So if you can combine those things, I mean, the data already tells us that's what most people will relate to somehow, or they'll just watch nonstop. But then it's, how do you combine that with the education? And that's just, I've been chasing that for a decade.
So basically, we need Bill Nye the Science Guy with a silly cat on TikTok to somehow deliver the information.
That's right.
Well, funny story, because I did reach out to his producers. I actually did reach out, but I think they're just checked out of that. And they responded. I was like, "Are you Boss from Bill Nye?" They're like, "Yes." Hey, I have some questions about how did you do this? Crickets. And two of them, both of them actually. So,
I couldn't help but thinking when we were talking about it before, is some content might hit home better or more effectively if it's specifically relevant to the audience. So, like if you're working with an employer who's a software developer, it's all computer programmers or coders or, people working at a desk, versus maybe an employer that's an airline or a UPS. You might get a different type of employee, that different content might be more effective with them. I don't know if you put much thought into that, or, Adrian often talks about how any content you develop really has to be applicable for your audience, right? Mm-hmm. Age, culture, country they live in, whatever it is, and employment and types of jobs that people do definitely define them, and creates a culture. So, I see that as being a little bit of a challenge for you guys. I'm sure you either you've thought about it or you're going to.
That's an excellent point, and definitely made a mental note of that. But the subjects that we've been working on, we've been revolving around 5 main topics.
Yeah.
So we've been promoting topics on movements, on fuel or nutrition, on recovery, which is sleep, on stress management, and on what am I missing again?
Fitness or endurance, maybe?
Social
nutrition or
social connection.
Social connection, yeah. That's great.
Yep. So those 5 areas really are applicable to anybody in any setting, anywhere.
Sure.
And so we've been focused around those elements, and we haven't been tailoring it too much to the specific industry, but more specific to those specific lifestyles.
Yep.
If you're allowed to share, what is like the most engaging of those 5, or have you had like kind of pillars of different categories within one of those? Is there anything, if you're allowed to say, without giving too much away, but like which one of those is the most maybe relatable or engaging for your audience or your clients, patients?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we could totally share everything. I think it's really exciting. I think we all agree that with more and more research evidence coming out fast and furious, and I can speak from a personal space about things to share and things that we know are so important. When we share that information, for instance, just about the relationships with sleep and pain, it's something that maybe we take for granted. And it's maybe some of those things that don't get talked about enough. I think we recognize that some of the areas of overall health and wellness that almost get drilled into the ground are diet and exercise. So I think one of the things that makes us different, and again, with that APHPT space, trying to be so holistic and multifaceted, we tend to focus a little bit more on how can we get that awareness piece out for people about recovery and sleep, because it's not just sleep itself. It's actually the recover aspect, the effects on actual physiological stress, even just educating people on, well, I'm not stressed, my life's great. Well, what's your definition of that? What's actual physiological stress on the body? And then looking at those other aspects, I think overall mental health is obviously exploded as a topic in pandemic times, but really getting to the nitty gritty of what is that doing to our physical bodies, our mental overall well-being? What is that mind-body connection? So I would say that endure piece is a big part. And then the final one that I threw out there is that social connection piece. I think we love talking about that. That's probably the most forgotten element of wellness. Maybe we think as individuals, oh, well, I'm exercising, I'm getting a good diet, I manage my sleep, I manage my stress, I'm great. But if that social connection aspect isn't there, again, the research and evidence base tells us that's still going to have a really huge detriment in our overall health. And there's a huge connection between positive social support, interactions, and onset of pain and pain states. So I think that's one of the things that does set us apart. I think we're going to keep creating that content that hopefully are things that people just haven't gotten a chance to hear before, or if they have, maybe not as in depth or making those connections, maybe things that they just wouldn't get, unfortunately, in the public narrative.
Yeah. Great points, Megan. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. And we really try to educate people on the practical aspects of all these things. Like we try to make it, very digestible and also very underwhelming. We don't want the person to be overwhelmed with the information, right? So we want them to be able to read and say, oh yeah, I can do that. That's something I can easily manage within my day. I can easily, pick up the phone and call my best friend and have a chat with them at some point. We also talk a lot about different types of endure or stress management strategies through breath work. And, it's easy to incorporate some deep breathing throughout your day for 1 or 2 minutes at a time. So things that can be easily managed throughout one's day and that are applicable to pretty much every age group and every corner of the country and every type of industry.
Yes. So my follow-up question to that, to reiterate, is kind of like, have you tracked though, like the content for social, is that do better than the breathwork content? Like, are you tracking which ones are doing better? Which one has better outcomes maybe, or?
We are not.
But we will.
But we will.
Yeah. Got to generate the content. We're really starting to get all that content out there. I'm really excited about that. I think we will be trying to harness that level of informatics because it will be great to see not only what gets the most clicks, but like you said, what are the videos that people watch all the way to the end? What are the topics that they seem most engaged in? One of the things that between Stephanie and I both talking just now that got me excited when she talked about those small things, those actionable things. I'm a huge fan of the author, Charles Duhigg, talking about habit change. So we know that there are those keystone habits. We know that there's those little things, the domino effect. I think that's what we're really getting at too. We know part of the problem, I think, in the country, again, I don't think people, or I'd like to believe that overall people at this point know what are really beneficial wellness behaviors. There's always barriers to them engaging in those. It's too much, it's too overwhelming to think I need to change my diet, I need to change my exercise, change my sleep, change all these things at the same time. I'd like to think that maybe we could find and use and harness that informatics, like you said, to see what are people most interested in. Yep. And if we can really focus on that, that could be that domino effect that's naturally just going to lead into those behavior changes in the other areas. So you got me really excited about that just now thinking about it.
You're welcome.
That's good. I mean, it's always, it's one thing to educate people. It's one thing to tell them what to do or advise them on what to do. Getting them to make changes, getting yourself to make changes is challenging. I've been trying to go to sleep before 11 o'clock every night and can't seem to do it for, 3 or 4 nights a week.
It's baby steps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kaizen. Ed, are you familiar with the word Kaizen?
No.
It's a Japanese term and it literally means 1% continuous improvement daily.
Okay, Kaizen.
And so when you Kaizen something, Kaizen a new habit, then if you want to go to bed earlier, then you go to bed earlier 10 or 15 minutes, for a few days in a row. You can manage that, right? I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to bed at 10:45 tonight. I can manage that. Sure. And then you make that into a habit. And once that's become a habit, then you try 10:30 maybe. if you want to keep, getting to
yeah,
earlier and
yeah.
earlier. But it's that, those little bits of actionable, little bits of action that you can incorporate into your daily life that is very digestible for the individual, and it's not overwhelming. It's, that Kaizen.
And a domino effect, like Megan said
Yeah,
before,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Little things start making a big difference.
Right. And you
That's
add
great.
them up. You add them up because you can have the social connection piece and then work in a little bit of breath work for a couple minutes all in the same day. And that's not an overwhelming thing to do.
Yep.
No.
What do you see as the biggest challenges ahead in the next few months and next year or two for Navigate Pain?
Well, I think we've talked about that already. It's the scaling.
I guess so.
The tracking of our content.
Yeah. Do you have other people working on content?
It's really Megan and I right now.
That's challenging. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
What about on the technology side? Are you utilizing any specific technology besides telehealth, besides SEO and website development?
For
Anything
Navigate Pain,
else?
we have an IT guy that we're working with that's helping us out on that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Adrian, anything else to add?
I'm fascinated to see where you're at in like 6 months. Because I think, part of my whole passion has been behavioral change behavioral change comes from education. That's been my premise. And I feel like all the stuff we've done as rehab professionals, even when I was just as I was graduating, that's when I was like, I want to be on TV. But I think what you're doing in the pain science spectrum, I'm fascinating more on the geeky side of like data and numbers about, like I wish I met you in like a year and like be like studied you guys and be like, all right, well, this content works and this category really doesn't work. And maybe breath work is what a lot of people care about, but in 2022, people care more about sleep. I don't know, it might kind of have this weird cycle so that's kind of where I'm very fascinating that you're kind of specific triage, you're about chronic pain, and you're actually creating content that's mostly educational and with bits of actionable steps, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because pain education is like the biggest thing. Like if you can educate people about their pain and their journey through pain and all the research we've done with the pathoanatomical problems that we came into past decade in rehab education, I think, I'm really just curious to see where you are in 6 months if you're at this stage in the game right now. I think it's a fabulous thing, and I'm not sure what your ultimate, I know we've talked about like, okay, you want to have a bunch of employees, you want to have Google that, it's like all their employees, your website, but I think there's probably even just more that you're able to do in this area. And I'm curious to see like what other like kind of pillars you have, because I'm sure there's probably more. You're probably thinking about even just the triage. Like, have you thought about, the intake on the triage being more, what's it called? Oh my gosh, like a game of, not gamifying, but like more interactive, a little bit more interactive. Have you thought about, instead of it just being kind of a short term, kind of going with them for the rest of their adulthood, so I'm kind of curious about if those conversations have come, even just like at the bar or something like that over a beer, like what's the big vision,
Yeah, well, I'll speak to kind of part of that, Stephanie. So I think it really goes back to our thought piece on the ultimate for that triage. So the ultimate would be, how can we keep this to such a base touch point that we really, again, for the most part, can give people control in their own behaviors, put them in the driver's seat, and really make it about that self-management piece. Again, going back to the research base, for not all conditions, for quite many, and all have some component of self-management. So I think that big grand vision of the scalable thing to make what we're talking about to be hopefully more the norm. you have that trusted provider that you do call. You don't go, hopefully running to the doctor's office for these types of things, or to the heaven, again, hopefully not the ED or urgent care. This becomes the norm. This becomes, I need to talk to this type of care professional because I really understood and have a public trust that they're actually the ones that are the experts to help guide me here. That I think is part of this vision. I'll let Stephanie speak to some of those other aspects too.
Yeah, I guess I can only speak to the vision that we have, this sort of the altruistic vision that we have as therapists, to be not just considered somebody you go to after you've had surgery and you need to, go back to daily life or go back to sport. But really, I think, we definitely have had conversations that as therapists, we can be involved in sort of a primordial aspect of care, meaning teaching people the right kinds of lifestyles that are healthy and can keep them from getting injured or sick. And the primary modes of care, which, can further teach people how to condition themselves and strengthen themselves and strengthen the human body, all the way to the secondary aspect of care of helping them after they do suffer some type of injury, and really being the first person for musculoskeletal triage. So that was really the big vision in terms of, professionally, where do we want to go and where do we want to take this as individuals, but also as professions of rehab specialists as well. In terms of like addressing, I could see your mind, Adrian, going crazy about like technological advances that we could try for this website. And that's a very fun conversation to have, and would be even more fun once we've had maybe a little bit more investment, maybe get some angel investors to help us out with
it's still fun to talk
anyone
about,
out there
right?
can reach Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit when it comes to that, right? I mean, you just need to have an imagination to know where to go and bring in the technology to help us see how we can affect those behavioral changes. So.
Yeah, we've seen this and heard this from other startup companies that really the most important thing is to get things started, do it manually, essentially, like you're doing it, cobble it together, get some proof of concept, get some happy customers, basically. And then maybe some investment comes after that, and then technology can start automating things a little bit more. But yeah, I think the premise is definitely something to really launch you into something big. Are you? I forgot what my next question was. Adrian, did you have another follow-up question?
I do. This is kind of a little sidestep, but because of physical therapy education, I wouldn't say it's lacking, anymore. But any thoughts about? Because I know the AHPT, the AHPT, APHPT. Have you thought about kind of a academic style, like a training program, or is that what the HPHPT is doing? Because we can educate the public, right? But what about our students or people in residency or fellowship as yourself, learning about navigating pain? Has you thought about kind of going into that, the school systems, because there's faculty, staff, there are students there. I'm thinking about then like the NYU, but kind of combining it with public facing, but also kind of being integrated into the academic institutions.
Yeah, Megan's nodding her head.
I am nodding my head because there's definitely, I will say there are definitely some APHPT members that are very invested in that. We know that we want to provide more changes, and I, being the occupational therapist, want to see more being done in the OT profession. There are certain aspects. I mean, one of the things that we as a profession also have is a background in mental and behavioral health, for instance, but I would like to see that profession step up. And that's why I'm so passionate about it too. In our role as well, with physical therapists, with other professionals, conservative care professionals in that health promotion space and that prevention space. So I do think it starts academically too. So what I could just say is that I do know that we do have members that are thinking that way. whether it's they are doing guest lectures or trying to push this narrative so that it becomes more on the forefront. It needs to be part of that education, I think, for those different schools, certainly health schools. And then also we know about just pain and pain science itself. That's the other component. I know some programs are integrating more of that into the curriculum, and some have a ways to go. There's unfortunately an uneven playing field that way. Whether specifically navigate your pain, I think that would be incredible, whether it was more from an entrepreneurial aspect or certainly just showing students or different programs, this is something that's possible. This is something that's part of and should be part of a trajectory for entry-level rehab specialists or professionals that are coming into the world.
And I'll just speak to what's going on in physical therapy and somewhat specifically at the APTA, the American Physical Therapy Association. There definitely has been talk about in doing more education in the space of health promotion and prevention. There have been some motions passed in the House of Delegates recently that relate to physical therapists being able to do sleep hygiene, to be able to promote health and wellness through sleep hygiene aspects, do basic nutrition, that's within our scope of practice, is to be able to do basic education on just general eat more plants. It's okay for us as licensed physical therapists to say that. And so as APTA continues to evolve and pass these motions that show that we are progressing as a profession, then curriculum kind of starts to fall into place at an educational level, very close thereafter. And there are certainly people who are on both sides of that equation, working on these motions in the House, and are also part of CAPT and educational institutions, and working that into the curriculum as well. It's kind of a slow process, a bit sort of a trickle down process where it starts with an idea and sort of works its way through the association and then into the curriculum, but it is happening.
Yeah, great points. Our profession, PT and OT, we're so involved in the overall health of our patients. At every point along the care, every point of care, that I think it's so relevant for us to be better educated in nutrition, sleep, recovery, all the things that you're talking about. You two have both gone out and pursued that education, that information on your own, but it probably should be more of the core curriculum in our education programs, because on a daily basis, we're put into scenarios where we can be more helpful with patients than just doing a MOB on their ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really quickly on the OT side too, we have our different scopes of practice, and we divide different areas into occupations, hence occupational therapy. And I'm really delighted to say that just last year we added an area of occupation referred to as health management. And so that's considered its own area of occupation, as in addition to rest and sleep, for instance, is its own area. So these are things where, again, these professions, we're doing these different things. And that's why I'm so excited that our group is this intermixing, because again, we're trying to break down barriers and silos. And it's also not about whose scope of practice does what or does this. If obviously we're all speaking the same language and all coming together for the benefit of the people out there, I think it just speaks to the greater good of our professions are alongside each other, recognizing this. And I think there's just going to be that much more carryover and crossover in the future.
That's excellent. Well, we've asked you guys a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for Adrian or me?
I do, Dan. Like, where do you see, or Adrian, do you see the our society, American society, embracing rehab professionals as the primary care professionals for musculoskeletal injuries? Do you see that?
That's a great question. Getting deep with us, Stephanie. I like to think I have my finger on the pulse of American society, but probably not. Some people, yes, and we see it on a daily basis where, I think some some people think of their therapist as a highly educated doctor in the healthcare profession. Others, they hurt their back and they call their chiropractor, and, or they go to their primary care physician who is not really good at evaluating a musculoskeletal condition. It's going to take a lot of work, on our behalf, as a profession, as individuals, as the APTA. It'll take time, but all we can do as a profession and as individuals is to keep putting it out there, keep working at it. I mean, keep letting it be known that we are where our education is and where our knowledge is, and how we can be helpful to the greater good. And you two are talk. That's all I've been thinking about the whole time you've been talking. That this is really what you're doing now is really towards the greater good. It's not just about pain, and that's PTs and OTs. Really, that's we're good at that. We're very well rounded for the most part.
And I think
Adrian?
you're speaking to, just really quickly, the
Sorry.
advocacy portion too.
Yeah.
I've
Sure.
enjoyed like the PT First campaign. I thought that was just fantastic. I want to see the OT profession do some similar things. So I think it's just we could come together too in the future at just educating the general public. I think that's what our model with Navigate Your Pain is also trying to do. Like you said, making us more of that first choice for people. And I apologize. I'm excited to hear what Adrian has to say.
No apologies needed. I think it's funny, Dan, to answer this question after we've had several podcasts and people from all sorts of the tech and tele rehab. I think yes, but I think for a different reason. For example, I can see your company, a friend I'm talking to at the bar several years from now. Okay, I'm very castles in the sky kind of person, in case you haven't noticed. And I'll be talking like, yeah, I went to this thing called Navigate Your Pain that helped me a lot. But they didn't speak of a physical therapist or an occupational therapist. So I think there are going to be solutions, digital solutions that are going to help people. And then they might ask more questions. And then you'll realize that the physical therapist and the occupational therapist or rehab professional is behind that, kind of, doing all the work for the information or the digital solution. So I think even today, on Facebook, people are, I'm looking for a physical therapist on the Upper West Side, not PTs, like actual humans, friends of mine or acquaintances or in different cities. So I think it's, and there's more people out in social media and physical therapy. I think there's, I think it's coming. I think we just have to be
Oftentimes
a bit
though,
more
it's
patient.
like people who are looking for a PT or an OT is after they've had surgery or after their doctor has referred them for PT.
Right. I'm saying, but I think I mean, they can correct me, but when I first started, I don't think people were looking for a physical therapist. They were told by their physician to go. It was always like a point of entry, where now people are like, I need physical therapy, because they've been before, or they know somebody who went to it before, where even, I've been out 12 years. I don't think I could recall that much of communication about what physical therapists are. So I think it's getting there. But yeah, I think so. But it might be for different reasons. It may not be because they went to a brick and mortar place. It may be because this awesome platform and app helped me with my shoulder problem. And John is the one-on-one care consultant, but they're a physical therapist. Yeah. And that's who might be driving it. But we have to be, the rehab professional have to be behind all that, because otherwise they're going to be kind of swamped by
You have to push it. Yeah.
Non-licensed professionals, I guess.
Stephanie, what about you? Any other thoughts on that?
So no, I agree with Adrian. I think that this telehealth, TelePT, digital PT, digital rehab, whatever you want to call it, whether it's PT, OT, is going to really drive some of the awareness of what we can do, and kind of change the perspective, because I also think the public will sort of silo PT and OT, saying, well, I'm only going to see the OT if it's a shoulder, arm, or hand, especially hand specialist, and only see the PT for, anything from the waist below. And when in reality, we can all treat a variety of pain-related dysfunctions. And as we become more educated in lifestyle health behaviors, it doesn't matter if it's the PT or the OT, but it's going to be, the licensed professional that is behind that digital platform that is solving the problem and keeping that individual out of the medical system. I believe it's going to happen. I really do. It's going to take time, and it's going to take just awareness and propagating the knowledge through any type of platform, whether it's social media or any digital website or brick and mortar. It's going to take everybody working together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, power is not given, it is taken. It's really, there's other competing forces who are looking to stake their claim to this space as well. We know we can be helpful. So, we have to get out there and let it be known. We know we can find you at navigateyourpain.com. Correct? Anything else? Any other contacts? Any other ways that people should reach out to either one of you, Stephanie or Megan?
I'm also on LinkedIn, Stephanie DeShino Wakeman on LinkedIn.
Nice.
And you can reach us at navigateyourpain.com, and also stephanie.wakeman at aphpt.org.
Nice.
Megan.
I'll put it in the show notes. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I have the exact same email handle, so you can find me Doyle at aphpt.org. Also, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn as Megan Osgood Doyle.
Excellent. And we're expecting to see more and more content on Navigate Your Pain. And there is content there already, which people should check out right now, see what's there. And I'm sure you'd like to hear comments and feedback from people if they can, let you know what's working, what's not, right?
We would love that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, thanks for coming on. And I appreciate you guys working for the greater good.
Thanks for having us, guys. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Adrian.
Absolutely. This is great. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you both. It's been great.
Yeah. Bye-bye.